Coté, are you like on your personal cell phone? Are you like a Mac person or like Android?
I've embraced the Apple lifestyle.
Yeah, I have too. It's kind of like my family has, and if I don't, then I turn the chat green, and that upsets everyone.
And that's
Anyway,
mean.
and so that was smart of them to work in the social pressure of conformance because
Uh-huh.
it's working. But that's not the point. The point is, recently on my phone, I use the Apple, and recently on my phone, I had to do an upgrade. And the upgrade introduced this liquid glass, which is like a new UI.
Uh-huh.
If you could see my face right now, I'm squinting in disgust. It really upset me. Have you upgraded to liquid glass?
Yes. I guess the embrace part was I just I'm all in. Just as soon as possible, I upgrade all the stuff and I just go for it.
And tell me about that mindset.
Well, first, a part of that mindset, maybe to go to the second question, is like, I know there's a lot of people who don't like it, and there's lots of complaining, and I feel like even if you're way deep into the Apple world, like maybe some VP got fired over it or something, all sorts of speculation.
Good.
But if you were to ask me now what liquid glass is, I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. like the only frustrating, and I'll get back to your question. Like I did encounter a frustrating thing earlier today on the iPad where like the keyboard keeps getting small and it's really hard to get it bigger. And so maybe they could fire someone about that. Or you know what? They don't have to fire them. They could just fix it. That's all. But yeah, so about upgrading like all the time, I do get excited about like the new features that you get. And I also know that there's often undocumented little features. So it's like, I don't know, like maybe here's an analogy and then I'll stop. Like, you remember Toys R Us? It's a giant toy store. And I remember this stopped happening at some point in the late 80s. But I remember you could go in there and it was like Costco is for adults. There was just like so many things and they had rotating inventory and you could go around there and just find things that you weren't expecting. And so it's kind of a little bit of that when you upgrade. It's like, oh, look at this.
You don't know
setting
what you
three
do.
menus down, and
You don't know what's available to you until it's in front of you and you like that choice.
Yeah. And often these things are very lame. I don't know. I just upgrade the stuff.
I am so resistant to upgrading. I've like for liquid glass, as far as I know, it's just a change in how things look. I don't know that there's actually any change in functionality, but I'm a visual person. I have an art degree. Like I care a lot how things look, and I put a lot of time and care into making it look the way I like it. Yeah. And then liquid glass came on over and just like blew everything up. And my time is valuable, and I don't want to sort through the menus and get it back to how I had it. But also looking at it makes me angry. So I don't know which thing I'm going to do, which path I'm going to take moving forward. Yeah. And a little bit I've given into, like back in the day when upgrades were rare and it was more of a thing that you could manage, I did try to manage it because I wanted that control. And this is something that's a big piece of my life. And honestly, I've kind of given up and been like you, like just freaking upgrade. I can't even think about it. Hopefully it doesn't blow anything up. And liquid glass is a recent case where it has, but often something is upgraded and I just don't have the bandwidth anymore to keep track of what it is.
Yeah.
Which I think the world in general is doing to us.
That's probably my thinking is like, this is, it's more entertainment to be upset about this than anything.
It's going to get upgraded on me anyway, eventually. Fine, just do it. But I don't like it. Yeah. Our guest today, hello, Heidi. Will you introduce yourself and weigh in on our conversation, please?
Yes. So my name is Heidi Waterhouse, and I am a dev tools marketer advocate, and I am the co-author of a new book called Progressive Delivery, which is about this very problem and how much we don't consider the user when we make the software. And it's really interesting to me what you're saying, Whitney, because one of my volunteer gigs is sex education, like comprehensive sex education. And the thing that we keep saying over and over again to these young people is consent, 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 ongoing enthusiastic consent. And
yes.
I have not ever felt like that was actually a thing that I got from software. I get coerced consent. I'm like, do you want to use the software? Well, I guess I'm collecting your data now. I'm like,
Yes.
that's not cool.
Or do you want to read these terms and conditions that are, to move forward and using something that's become a vital part of your life? We'll read these 5 pages of legal technical documents. And even if you disagree, then what? Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've always, I never really thought I could have control. What does that look and feel like?
Right. So I think starting with the liquid glass thing, which, boy, you are not the only angry person out there. I was just at a art camp, which was amazing, by the way, with a bunch of retired age people who had been in technology.
Okay.
And they were so mad because the way the Apple phone camera operates had changed somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to take pictures of their quilts and they couldn't figure out how to do it. And they're helping each other. And I'm like, I can't help you. I'm an Android person. But I was like, the pressures inside software are very much like, what are we releasing this quarter? And how am I getting promoted about it?
Yes.
And it's so disconnected from, I'm trying to do a thing in my daily life. Why did you move my frickin' cheese?
Right.
Yes.
Like, this is not a new problem.
Yes.
Yeah, and someone had a phrase. I forget who it was. They had a phrase. This is a couple weeks ago of like backseat-driver software that's like constantly like asking you things like, "Would you like to leave a review? Would you like to do this? Have you checked this out? Here's a tip." And just like always getting in your face about like itself. Like in my like the worst is Uber Eats is constantly sending notifications. Because if I turn off notifications about Uber Eats, I'm not going to get my Thai food. So like I've got to have this like avenue in there.
But they abuse that channel.
That's
exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like you gave them consent for telling you when your Thai food is arriving, but you did not give them consent to, did you know that if you recommend 5 people, like, no, I don't want that.
Here's my question though. Once something is at the center of your life, like your cell phone, like what motivates them to get user consent? Like they would have to do something so bad, and maybe they did with Liquid Glass, to like get someone to move their entire life onto a different system. So at some point they have an advantage that they know they have and they're taking advantage of. As a consumer, how do you fight that? And how does that work into your idea that consent is, what's the consequence of not getting that consent, I guess?
So I think that's why we need to talk about it to kids, because like they don't live in a world where consent matters. Like, I don't want to do that. I'm sorry, kid. You are having a shower. Like, you smell bad.
Yeah.
And so, and the surveillance culture that we are subjecting children to right now is priming them to believe they don't have any right to consent. It's like, I know where you are. I know what you're doing. I can see what you're doing. They don't have any privacy. And it is heartbreaking when I talk to my young adults about how much they assume they're being surveilled, how little privacy they think they have. And they're not wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm that cusp generation where you could be anonymous on the internet and you could like go for a 10-mile bike ride without your parents knowing where you were. And so like, to bring it back to software instead of culture, I think when I first got Android phones, when I first started getting phones, I would jailbreak them every time because I had a very specific keyboard I wanted to use.
Okay.
And I'm like, you don't give me access to my keyboard, I'm jailbreaking the system. And eventually they got to the point where they're like, okay, this is an app, you can have your keyboard without having to jailbreak. And I stopped jailbreaking. I wouldn't know how to jailbreak an Android anymore.
Yeah.
Like it used to be, I would get a new phone and new phone day was jailbreaking it and putting all the stuff I wanted on. I don't do that anymore because they are allowing me to have the experience that I want.
Yes.
That I can turn off location tracking. Like, I live in occupied Minneapolis. The way I use my phone has really changed because I know that there is unusual and dangerous surveillance going on. Like, do I take my phone, which is, we all think of it as sort of a safety device. Like, if something happens to me, I can call for help. Do I take my phone to stand guard at the food shelf? Do I take my phone to distribute groceries? No, because the very fact of my phone going places that distribute groceries means that somebody can see where a person who needs groceries is, which implies that they are not going out, which implies that they are not here feeling safe.
Yeah.
And so that consent thing is still possible, but it's very all or nothing. I can't
because
just turn off location tracking because it's still pinging a tower.
And so what happens is people do, at some point, there's some sort of lever where you abandon the technology altogether if you're not able to consent in the ways that you want to consent. So
I'm currently researching mesh networks. Like, how much could we get off big internet? Like, I never thought about that last year.
Yeah. And what's upsetting too is data can be pulled from years past when we weren't worried about it or upset about it or protecting ourselves in that way. Yeah.
So from a software creator point of view, I think it's really interesting to say the more changeability, the more configurability we give people, not just at a interface level, but at a data level, the less likely we are to have them give us up entirely. Like, the less likely people are to table flip and leave our environment.
And maybe there's
right now that's like only very like politically intense people care about this. But we'll get to the point where the quilt grandmas are like, okay, I can trust Android's camera more than Apple's camera, and I don't care if I turn my chat green because this is what needs to happen.
Yeah, I can trust this thing I've learned isn't going to change on me, or these settings I've chosen aren't going to come out from underneath. And I would postulate that the more like heavily adopted the center of your life at technology is, probably the more room you have to try to manipulate your users before they table flip. If it's not something you use often, if it's not what you want pretty immediately, you table flip much faster than if it's something at the center of your life. But the idea of consent being important stands in either use case and the whole.
I think Facebook is a very interesting example of this.
Oh, I've table flipped Facebook. I don't know what's going on over there anymore.
And I think that's an interest. But did you do Instagram?
I've table flipped Instagram a couple years ago, but I did do it for a while. Yes.
Yeah, and I never signed into the Facebook system. Like, that was whatever. That was my nerd. But now I'm on WhatsApp because that's how my neighbors communicate. And I'm like, oh, you got me back in because of the network effect. And so I think...
And what do you mean by the network effect?
I mean, if I want to communicate with my hyper-local response group, it's on WhatsApp because it's got better multi-language support than Signal.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay.
And so now you're in the back in the meta ecosystem. Yeah.
And I hate it, but the rewards are higher than the aversion.
Yeah.
But see, I think it's interesting. Coté, did you have a Facebook? Ever?
Yeah, I've got a Facebook thing.
Yeah.
I never log into it anymore. It happens by accident.
Right.
So sometimes I go to like Instagram and I always think like something's going to happen here that I care about, and then it doesn't. So then I leave. I don't know. But yeah, I've got that stuff. And of course, I live in Europe, so I have WhatsApp, the universal communication protocol of not America, of Europe, basically.
Yes. So I think that we can see that Facebook tweaked their algorithms and denied consent so long that even normies are starting to leave. We're not normies, but like my mom abandoned Facebook.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, you have screwed up your core demographic now.
Yeah. What was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of your mother, or what's bothering that generation?
Yeah. The push for engagement bait over family news.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
The reason people were using it was family community connection. That doesn't pay as much as rage bait.
How does this relate? Oh, sorry.
And we know that Facebook is pushing rage bait because it pays more. Like they've said that.
So how does this idea of consent-based computing relate to enshittification? It seems like almost the same thing.
It is the consumer side of enshittification. Because when Dr. O talks about enshittification, he's talking about like it was valuable, and then the economic forces of, honestly, venture capital are forcing this hypergrowth model that rewards antisocial in sort of the technical term. Like, we want software that is pro-social for the most part. Like, we want connection. We want to talk to humans. We want to feel affirmed. We want to know what's going on at our hometown, right? These are all pro-social desires. And it isn't just social media, but it's largely social media that we think of this way. Antisocial behavior drives higher engagement and turns off your reasoning so that you are more likely to be like, I'm going to buy 50 MREs.
Yeah. I'm going to give this app more attention instead of real humans in my life more attention.
Right. But you feel like you're going to it for real humans, and then you get sucked into this reactionary state. And it's really good for software. Like, it's good for selling ads, which is the only way you can really do hypergrowth.
Yeah.
And Dr. says this in enshittification, but if we were trying to do moderate growth, the way that business and capital worked for most of the history, we wouldn't have this problem because it would self-correct. But because there's all this VC money coming in, we don't have that signal that says people don't like this because VCs like it.
Yeah. What VCs think matters more than what users think.
Exactly. Because you're not getting as much money from the user as you are from the VC.
Yeah.
So the signal is very skewed.
But then eventually it needs to convert from a VC funded product to a user funded product. How does that switch happen?
The VCs don't care because they get their money out before that point.
Wow. The world is bananas. Yeah.
It is. But like, if you think about it, everybody who did early Uber made their money back hundreds of times, right? And they may still be a little invested in it.
The investors.
But, but on the whole, they're on to the next thing and the next thing. They're out. They got their hypergrowth money. And now the company is left without that, sustaining money. And they have to figure out how to make money. And the only way to make it is from exploitation of the users.
Yeah. And then we're back around to user consent and enshittification. Yeah.
Yep.
But we still need a heuristic for it's okay to change the UI.
Yes.
As a big stable company that I don't know if you'd say like Apple has been enshittified. It's in some other class of
Apple is a weird case. Yeah.
And so it does but we got to solve the Whitney problem. Like, is she going to leave? Maybe we could call this the Whitney line. One day she'll be like, they upgraded iOS and I'm out. And it's just what would that line have to be? And that's very important for them to know.
I can tell you how to avoid the line, which is to say, Whitney hates this UI. There's a button that will flip it back. And there's no technical reason especially for a UI change, that you couldn't have both versions.
At least for a while, but isn't there a point where you're maintaining two versions and you don't want to do the work involved in keeping that old version around?
I don't know. Do you like having those users? Okay, so there is an argument for sunsetting. But I think that on the whole, we are so averse to repeating ourselves that software makers move so much faster than software users that we completely lose sight of what it's like to only buy a phone every 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's like the world average is more like 6, but the US average is like 3.
Okay.
So tech people who get a new phone every year are way out on the cutting edge. It does feel like that when you're on the inside.
Yeah.
It feels like, oh, everybody is doing this now. Everybody I know has a phone with 5G. Why wouldn't we do this?
Yeah. So there's a real bias in all the mindsets of people working in tech because of the people that they interact with in the world.
I always say that the thing that I want to do to UX designers is give like the oldest, shittiest monitors currently available. Like, welcome to your VGA hell, because that's how users are experiencing the world.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, that's so wise. And there is some sort of testing involved where you test on the oldest version of whatever, but like that's like an automated test of
it's an
pass-fail
automated
situation.
Test,
yeah.
And it's not the developer. It's not the designer that's doing that. Designers have the giant screens with like the super high def, right? And they're living a different world than people who are like, I actually... this is on a rolly cart in a hospital, or this is in a car mechanic shop, or,
So I want to get around to how do you incorporate the user's feedback into your software delivery lifecycle? But I think maybe before we do that, let's introduce your book that you've co-written recently. Will you talk about the Progressive Delivery book?
Yes. So the Progressive Delivery book is the evolution of me and Adam Zimmon and James Governor and Kim Harrison. And we noticed that there was this thing happening where we didn't need to do big releases. We were doing sort of agile releases, but we weren't pulling back any of that information into the software development lifecycle. So like if you think about the DevOps loop, right? There's dev and there's ops, and it goes around and it's like you develop, you deploy, you launch, you iterate. That loop is missing one of the loops. There's a user acceptance loop. So it should be like you develop, you launch, you get it out in the world, and then the user experiences it, and feedback comes back into the ops loop and back into the devs loop. Because we can do that. We can absolutely tell if there was a switch that said turn off liquid glass. If 50% of people are turning off liquid glass the minute they see it, that signal needs to get back to the devs. Or if people are having bandwidth problems, like you've done something to your game and you've put in a very high bandwidth ad, that needs to come back to ops. And if ops is not instrumented and looking for that, that's a user problem. It's not a launching problem. Like the deployment worked fine.
Yeah.
But the way that people are experiencing it is not working fine. And we could instrument and be watching for that. So
the liquid glass example, Then when you're doing like a canary rollout and you're only polling a couple % of your users, that's when you can see people hate liquid glass as opposed to waiting for general release in the model that you're describing. Rollout, yes.
So the progressive delivery book has a bunch of concepts that are like, okay, in order to build a team that can listen to the user, here are the things you need: abundance, autonomy, alignment, and automation. If you have a team that has those things, then you can be listening to the user and the user experience beyond just what the user tells you. Because, like, please do not ask me to tell you how I feel about my software. Like, now I'm annoyed you've interrupted my flow. But you can't say, like, you read all the way down the page, or you only read the top third of the page, or you used AI to summarize that page. Those are really useful data points that you don't need to interrupt somebody to see.
Yeah. So this framework with the 4A's that you just said, is that something like the DORA, where it's like you actually have specific things you measure on, or is it more of a mental model for how to move forward? Describe that framework to me a little more in practice.
It's more of a mental model. We're working on trying to build an instrument to measure it, but it's difficult because every team is individual, and honestly, like, the DORA level measurement stuff is really sophisticated.
Okay, yeah.
But what we want to say is, like, there are some heuristics that you can use. Like, how much money can you spend without asking about it?
So that's autonomy.
That's autonomy. And abundance, well, and it's also abundance. It's like, do you have the things that you need to do what you want? Like, do you have to go through a tedious process to provision?
Okay.
Right? And there should probably be a little check on the process, especially in the land of AI, where you can run up some real good bills before you realize it. But, like, can you do what you want to do without having to slow down and ask for a ton of permission? Do you know what that is? Like, that's the other thing. It's like the unlimited vacation problem. Unlimited vacation is such a scam. I'm so mad about it, because really it just means we don't want to have to pay out vacation time.
Yeah.
But unlimited vacation means very different things in different teams and different organizations. And sometimes it means you can never take that much time off. And sometimes it really does mean unlimited, take what you need. But they look the same on paper. So abundance is like, how do you know what the guardrails are so that you can get right up against them? So that you can be high performing without feeling like you're going to pop out of the luge track.
Absolutely.
And then we get to, like, autonomy, which is, do you have the power to change things? Do you have, as a team or as a person, the power to say, this isn't working, or I feel like we could do better? And then alignment,
and blameless. Be able to,
exactly.
Not just the power, but without consequence. Yes.
Yeah. And alignment is about both alignment within the team, like, do we know what we're trying to do, and alignment with the user. So we understand what the user is trying to do. Are we being considerate? Are we asking consent? So alignment is really, there's almost two alignments. There's, like, internal and external. And you have to do different things to cultivate them. And then automation is, once you know how much of it can you automate so that you can get a flywheel. When we were designing this, several of us were working with teams who were doing an agile DevOps transformation. There's a lot of companies out there who are not agile, or they're doing some other kind of thing. So we wanted something where people could start at a small level, start on your own team, and scale it up without necessarily needing to do a big transformation thing. It's like, okay, can you increase the autonomy? Can you increase the alignment? Okay, having done that, can you automate what you've increased? And so we want people to have a bunch of different avenues to approach being more progressive and adding feature flags and adding deployment monitoring and adding instrumentation for user experience. All of these things are going to help you. None of them is a transformation, because those projects are a nightmare. Anyone who's ever been on a transformation project is like, what if I just walk into the ocean instead? How's that sound?
And then, it sounds like you're saying too, like any improvement you can make in any one of these areas is an overall improvement. You don't need to approve across all four altogether to
exactly
to improve.
We actually think that trying to do all of them at once is overwhelming and too difficult. Mm-hmm. But if you step up, if you ratchet, then you can get a lot of improvement in relatively little pain.
And then does your book help define like a goal on the horizon that you're working toward? And what does that look like exactly?
So the goal on the horizon is that your delivery process is simpatico with the acceptance process of the user. One of the books that we read when we were writing it was Future Shock, which is...
I don't know that book.
No, because it's from 1969.
Oh.
It was available in mass quantities in used bookstores in the 80s. Just
exactly. And
nothing like reading a book from the past about the future. That's probably still the past.
We're not wearing paper clothes, but like some of the stuff he said about education was eerie. I'm like, oh, we tried that. We found out it didn't work, but we did try that. And
What specifically?
So he said that education was going to stop being so centralized and splinter into little, basically, pods.
That sounds
and
right.
That every child would have individualized education. And it turns out that while that seems idealistic and awesome, you have to have a foundation of shared learning. And if you don't slow the bright kids down and speed the slow kids up, you have real like problems extending out into further education.
Interesting. Okay,
we're also not living underwater, but there was a ton of stuff about, he's like, people need options. People need the ability to control their life. And if you don't give them that, they will rebel and table flip.
But I when I'm home, I never use DoorDash, but when I travel, sometimes I do. And especially in the morning, I get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning and I want coffee, and it's not really available in the hotel yet. So I might DoorDash coffee. So I'm like DoorDashing Starbucks recently when I was in New York. And the number of options I have for every little thing is freaking wild. It's like so many milk options, but then do you want it steamed? And then do you want these syrups? And then do you want like half calf or full calf? Or like there were literally for like a cup of coffee. I like plain coffee. Like there were 50 options. Like that seems like overboard, or do you think that's like a good thing?
I think you want to go through that once, and then you want Starbucks to know who you are when you log in.
That did happen. So I guess we got the user experience we wanted.
If you're using like, what is it, FFmpg on the command line, you finally get it set up, and then you just make an alias or a script file so you never have to touch it again. Or that YouTube DLP, whatever, all that kind of stuff. You have infinite options, but you sort of want like that default setting. My favorites.
Yeah, I get that in a software example. In a Starbucks example, when there's human like effort that needs to happen every time a coffee is ordered to remember all of these different options and how it's doing, it seems like it could slow down the whole process.
Yeah,
but in software, yes.
The goal is to have persistent identity and persistent preferences. So I think of this as an accessibility thing. There are dark mode people, there are light mode people, there are people who don't care. I'm a switches at sunset person. which many people find weird. They're like, how? And I'm like,
I was going to say, I've always wondered who actually uses that. It's so confusing. Yeah.
Yeah. For one thing, it like notifies me that I should pay attention to the time. I also have like
that's good.
decorative lights over here that switch every couple hours so that I am aware of the passage of time.
I love that.
Yeah. But so in an accessibility sense, what I want is for all of my apps to know that about me, and for them to also be like, yes, you want your font a little bigger. Mm-hmm. And I want that identity to travel with me. I want there to be a universal usability language that says, this person can't do high contrast because they get migraines, or this person can only do high contrast because they have low vision. Those are conflicting accessibility requirements, but why can't they be persistent? Like, why can't they be tied to who I am?
Right.
And
it seems like almost a set it and forget it type of like phrase you would use for it, right? Like you figure it out and you set it, just sort of like with your coffee, Whitney. You figure out the way that you want it, and then like this is the one keyword to use, or like the one thing that you want to do. And then I guess you could also, like, I always try to have my small contained rebelliousness against the world order, and I always say I want a small instead of a tall. And I think it makes me feel a little more empowered when it comes to engaging with the big squid beast about everything.
Yeah. But so I think that the end goal of software should be that it fits to our hands. Whatever our hands are like, it should fit to our hands instead of us contorting ourselves to fit to the software. And the way we do that is give people optionality, ask them for consent, and give them a lot of understanding of why people have things set the way they are. Like every IDE, people configure it the way they want it. Like Coté was saying, like you have a thing that you want to set it that way. But sometimes you learn from other people's. You're like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And
like
that kind
a little bit of vanilla syrup makes the coffee taste better. Just a tiny bit.
like a quarter shot. Yeah.
There's a button for that tiny bit too.
On this topic, to kind of generalize, it seems like how do you account for the I don't know if it's cyclical, because I don't know the time period, but the kind of like frequent forgetting of the user, right? Like we had one example of the enshittification thing of like, we haven't so much forgotten about the user as we need to make money, and now we're doing that, right? And so like, and in fact, you think a tremendous amount about the user because you're trying to figure out how to like extract money from their presence and your involvement. But so we'll put that over there as a negative case. But a lot of things you've gotten over are like we used to have, we still do, but there used to be a lot more conversation about user experience or design, especially when Apple went through its ascendancy in the late 2000s. It was like, oh, design is important, right? Like maybe. And so it seems like, and then I was thinking this when you were going over like the DevOps loop, is like, you're right. There was like, I don't remember early DevOps, but that user feedback loop didn't really ever become part of it, right? And so I don't know, like what accounts for that? Like we as a technology community never go that last mile. Like we sort of like are constantly like, remember the user? We should get back to that. And it just seems to get dropped out of most cycles that we have.
The system does what it's designed to do.
Sure. Yeah.
So
so maybe like, are the people designing it not paying attention, or do they just not care, or like the designers, like what's up with them?
The designers are under a lot of pressure to look as cool as the other cutting edge software people. And when their boss comes in and says, hey, can we do this? Or, hey, you're going to do this. It's about comparing themselves to other software and not to the user experience.
Right.
Because
there's sort of like a negative cycle of like I forget the phrasing around this, but like you're doing your craft for other craftspeople, not for the users of it. Sort of like if I was in the market for like, well, I mean, I could make a direct analogy to software, but if I was in the market for like a bookcase, like I don't really need a fussy bookcase. I just need to put my book somewhere. But you could see that other bookcase people would be like, ooh, you use the beveled knobs. Tricky. That's hard to pull off accurately. Whereas, so maybe that's the thing is if you're internally facing, you should be aware that optimizing for your internally facing stuff is not that great. Which I think, I mean, to put it in business terms, it's sort of like a lot to kind of pick on them. Some of the DORA metrics, like it can be difficult to say, and how did this like make the company more money, or whatever like goal you might have as far as an organization operating.
It's always more money, but yeah. All right. So I think of it this way. Nobody likes Confluence. Confluence is the least bad solution that we have currently for the problem space that is shared corporate knowledge. It's better than SharePoint usability wise. That doesn't mean it's good, but it is like the lowest common denominator of usability. And if you customize it, if you make it too far from like Confluence standard, then you have a lot of onboarding and difficulty getting people to understand what you're doing with it. Like when you bring people in, they're like, oh, I know how to use Confluence. Okay, you don't know how to use Confluence here.
Yeah.
So Confluence suffers from its own success in that they have added everything that anyone has ever asked for. It's not opinionated. It is 50 kinds of things to set your coffee. What do we do about the fact that like there's people who try by making a different internal communications tool, okay, but you run into the problem that the company itself is formed around a Confluence-like system. And so I think there's a lot of the difficulty of changing things is that change is a variance, and variance is more expensive than standardization.
Yes.
So you have to choose really carefully what variants are a business value and what is just like rebelliousness. Like, what adds business value? And currently, we all use Confluence because it's good enough and nothing has really come along that's better. But we will change when something comes along that's better. Like we changed off of SharePoint.
Do you think that says something about in software, the value of the software category, that to say we're fine with, I'm going to say we're fine just as a way that of summarizing a lot of what you're saying, but to say that we're fine with something we collectively don't like, does it indicate that like that category of software isn't that valuable? Or does it just mean that someone hasn't come up with something better?
It's ripe for disruption.
It's ripe for disruption, but disruption is very hard because there's a lot of mass.
Yeah.
Like there's decades of influence or decades of information in there that we would have to transfer out.
Right. So you'd have to move the data, but then you also have like just in addition to that, you'd have the switching cost of skill of using it, right? Like and familiarity and things like that. And so I guess I don't know all the terms for this, but it feels like I guess the analysis is like how much effort would it take us to be better?
Right.
And like
would that pay?
Right, exactly. And if that amount of effort, if we don't want to do it, then we don't value this stuff enough to put that effort in to get to better. Like we're fine with what we have. It's kind of like, I guess, to go out of software, you have people who are car people and not car people. And they're like, I need a fancy BMW, or I could have a Ford Focus. And, maybe there's people who are like, Ford Focus, premier vehicle. You don't know what you're talking about. But like, it does seem like you're pretty much fine with the Ford Focus. You're kind of saying this category of cars, not important. Like there's, or not as important as like 500 other things in my life. And I don't worry about this one so much. And so like, it would seem like maybe when it comes to like internal knowledge management for technical people, we're kind of like, Confluence is fine. If this was a more important area of our lives, we would put in the effort to make it better, but really, whatever.
Right. Like, think about how many IDEs people cycle through, because that's very important to them in their daily
what
work.
they do. So any small amount of gain you get, whatever gain may mean, just happiness or productivity, is probably worth the effort of switching or experimenting with switching to it.
Right. But also, it's an individual choice, right? You're not necessarily constrained to use this tool or that tool when you're writing your code.
Right.
But you do have to share a knowledge management system. So you have to have consensus.
So to get back to the premise of the book, DevOps loop is missing a loop or missing a section where there's not user feedback being collected and then user feedback being fed back to the people making the software, which I very much agree with. And actually, I bang that drum a little bit in the context of platform engineering, but you're big nodding, yes. But what I want to understand is, how does adding that loop and getting that user feedback back to developers affect the bottom line?
So this is a theory. Like, we do not have the tool to prove this, but making the wrong thing is very expensive. And the faster, this is a thing we learned from Dora, the faster we release in smaller iterations, the more information we have about how to make the right thing, and we don't go down the wrong path. And so when we get that user feedback and feed it back into the developer, we can see that people aren't adopting, or that they are adopting in much higher numbers than we expected. And then we can lean into what's working and pull back from what's not working, or figure out why it's not working. I think that the other thing that I would love to see, and I never do see, is developers talking to people who use their software in anger.
Yes.
There's the salespeople, and and you're selling to an IT manager, but they're not the person who's like actually doing the work. And the example I have from this is from a long time ago, but it really stuck with me, which is I worked for a company that was making a skin on top of the Medicare system here in the US.
Huh. Okay.
And it was pretty, and it was mouse driven, because what's underneath that is green screen 10 key. Like, that is what runs Medicare. And they're like, oh, this is terrible. We can make this better. We can put a friendlier, more useful, predictive interface on it. What they hadn't done was talk to the people who actually did medical coding.
Oh, they don't want ClickOps.
No, they're wizards of the 10 key. And they were like, why would I don't even use my mouse. What's a mouse? But they were so fast at what they did that any kind of like GUI was slowing them down. And I'm like, you just built a whole software product around the misconception that modernity is automatically better.
So how might one, let's say, like progressively change that, right? Like let's assume the bar to entry to being really good at the green screen 10 key thing, it takes some time to learn, right? Like you could analogously say, like, well, the mainframes work, right? Like if you know what you're doing, this is great. But then you get another problem in the system of like, if we introduce someone new into the system, it's difficult for them, and they would like to swipe instead of click. I don't know. I'm making up stupid phrases here,
right?
But like, what would be the way of sort of like shifting between those two things? Do you just have different interfaces, or like how do you?
I think you
how do you introduce liquid glass to Whitney without her realizing it's happening?
I think you make it more gradual. So I think that you have like, here's the the all mouse way to do this, but did you know that there are keyboard shortcuts? You keep doing this mouse action. Did you know there's a keyboard shortcut for that? Would you like me to put a reminder in the corner for you for that shortcut until it gets into your fingers?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the next one. Here's the next keyboard shortcut. So that's a lot of user education. How we solve the Whitney problem is to say, first of all, like, would you like to phase into this? Okay, like in a year, everything's going to be liquid glass. Would you like to change your icons right now, but not everything else? Or would you like to, so that the 1 month it's okay, and the next month it's okay, and you're learning at a rate of change that you find acceptable. Because this was a big part of our thesis when we wrote the book, is that it's not that people are averse to change. It's that, they are, but it's not just that. It's that the rate of change is too high, and we're being asked to adapt too quickly, and our little Savannah hunting brains are just not up to that. And so, when you rearrange like when you move and your kitchen has the silverware drawer in the wrong place, like it's a better place in this kitchen, but it's still different, and you go to the wrong silverware drawer for like a month. That's our failure to adapt to rate of change. And so you can't really like gradually move the silverware across the kitchen, but we can absolutely do that with software.
That'd be funny.
I think that would be funny for one person. But I think that as a family, that might be possible architecture.
Now there are four forks over here.
It's back to needing group consensus to make change. You can't just have 3 silverware drawers. You're making. This is reminding me of you ever see that show Patriot? It's a very short-lived show, but at one point, this guy has to swim across the English Channel through some electric eels. And he makes this point of like, all you have to do is swim 51% of the way, because then it's shorter to finish it than it is to turn back. And so it's almost like getting to that 51% is like how you gradually get someone there that they put in the effort to do the rest is another sort of, I don't know, hackish thing to do.
Right.
So one thing I think is, I was going to change the subject. I'll let you finish with that.
I was just going to say, we need to make it internally rewarding. Like the thing about like, you only have to go 49% further is we feel like that in software all the time. Like, okay, well, I guess I have to do it this way now, and I'm going to commit to it, and I hate it. And in 2 weeks, you're like, oh, what? No, I don't even notice it anymore.
Right.
But that's because we have to touch it all the time. Yeah. And I think that we are underestimating the fact that most people don't touch their bank account every day. And so if you make a change that feels month by month to you, it's still an abrupt change for a person who only logs in once or twice a month.
Well, to that point, let me ask you about this. I was just talking about this with someone earlier today. I often say I think all the time about this, but I don't think all the time about all the things I say. Think of all the time about, but often, let's say, I think about like the pharmacy down the street and like their software needs, or the goodness of them. Like if the pharmacy down the street were to like peg out in a good way their DORA metrics, I'm not sure it would be too valuable to them, because like I'm fine with getting my prescriptions. Like I don't really know if them like updating their software is like necessary, at least for the user facing software. Who knows what kind of happy hunting grounds of weekly changes they have for their internal facing stuff. But like at some point, there's a lot of software that I use, kind of like you were saying, where like I don't really need it to change. Like maybe deploying security patches, like all these kind of things is fine. But really, like just like Whitney doesn't want the UI to change, like I would prefer you not ship a new UI feature every week, right? Like and so it does seem like there's from a lot of DevOpsy, DORA, and other things, I don't always come across that like, well, when is it okay to have a bad velocity? Like calibrating on like you should only ship up every 3 months. That sounds just like some counterintuitive Ignite talk you might see in DevOps days.
So the distinction is ship as fast as you can, deploy, ask for user acceptance on a different scale. So the difference is that rapid deployment, so I'm going to change my terms here, but rapid deployment is good. We know that from the DORA metrics, and we know that it makes systems more stable. We know that from SRE. We know that from platform. Rapid deployment is good. Rapid release, which is the moment that it engages with the user, is bad. Because rapid release is asking people to have a very high rate of change. There's nothing that says we can't deploy things that are not yet released or not released widely. We're doing canary test. We're doing, capacity test. We're making sure that everything works, but we are not asking users to log into something that changes every day or every week. We're saying, like, this is the cadence.
So you are doing your 1 to 2% canary deployment is having a small set of users see changes until they get accepted. And the idea that one user is seeing every single change is unlikely when you're testing a small percents all the time. I have something that's really interesting to me about your book. Your book has 4 authors, and y'all have wildly different backgrounds. So I'm interested in I could let you say, or I could say James Governor, he's an analyst. That's understating it, but we're going to do that. Kimberly Harrison is a sociologist, right? Yeah, focused on technology adoption. There's you. You said your background's in developer advocacy, right? And technical writing. Yeah. And then Adam Zimmern, who's a startup advisor and a VC advisor. So how did each of those backgrounds play into the story of your book? And honestly, how did y'all find each other?
So 3 of us were at LaunchDarkly together.
Ah, okay.
So everybody but James was at LaunchDarkly from about employee 20 to about 2022. So I think AZ left a little earlier. But so we were working together at this breaking edge of what is it that we could actually do with feature flags as a service, and how is that even a product? And having to think about that really drove a lot of our understanding of what people want and how acceptance works. One of the really interesting things that Kim and I worked on was a survey of how people are using feature flags. And when we came on to LaunchDarkly, we thought feature flags were sort of a front-end thing. It changed the look and feel of how you were doing deployments and configuration. What we found when we did this survey was that people were actually using feature flags in a load-bearing way. They were using it for routing, packet routing. I'm like, what? Why are you doing that? Surely we have other tools for that. But it was the best tool for doing the thing that they wanted to do, which was kind of weird. And people were using it for entitlements and account management. And it was so surprising to us that the majority of feature flags were what we called long-lived flags or permanent flags, rather than ephemeral flags that you think of with A/B testing and then you settle on an outcome. But no, people were using it to do, I think entitlements is probably the easiest way to think about it. And we're like, oh, we're not making what we thought we were making. And that kind of kicked off our thinking about how progressive delivery was about understanding what you're actually making when it contacts the market.
Why were they using those, what'd you call them, permanent flags? What accounted for them doing that?
Oh, they're super useful. So, you know how LinkedIn has 2 settings where either you're paying them or they're telling you to pay them?
I mean, why did they choose to use your tool in a way you didn't intend it to be used to do that?
Oh, because it was really good at what it did, which was delivering completely consistent experiences across a global scale without you needing to understand how the edge network computing stuff worked. Like all of that was behind the curtain.
Yeah, no, this is interesting. I mean, especially in light of all the stuff we talked about, it's an interesting case of like, to use an old phrase, like the street finds its own uses. Like, here's a tool that's easy to use. Well, it must have been easy to use and well designed, and then also fit, as you were saying, like a global need for like all sorts of weird services. And instead of using it for its intended purpose, people are like, oh yeah, we can just use this to route different people to different things, and then turn on features or entitlements, as you say, depending on who they are. Which, yeah, that I guess that happens frequently, or maybe not frequently, but it's almost like maybe Confluence will be replaced by something that has nothing to do with it originally, and that'll work out fine.
And it's so fascinating to me because coming to understand that the problem people were having was not understanding what a feature flag was, but how to get it globally distributed consistently. It changed the way I taught. You know, I spent a lot of time teaching people what feature flags were. And when I started, I had a lot of conversations at conferences. Do you know what a feature flag is? And by the end, yes, they knew what a feature flag was, but they had implementation questions.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And I guess this is how adoption works. And you see it happen. There's like waves. And the problem with being us is that we're way out on the front of early adoption. We're trying to explain like really radically new things to people who are still in the early adopter segment. And we're like, this will be cool. Let me tell you about eBPF. And the majority of people who are using software daily are like, I would like it if there were no backhoes between me and Chicago. That would be super. I don't know what happens other than that.
So I have one more question. And I think it's going to really pull everything together for me. I have high hopes, but with no pressure here. But like you're basically presenting a new way to think about software delivery lifecycle and a new segment of it. And so I would like for you. The book has some case studies. Will you tell like a concrete example of a company adopting this user feedback and how it affected them?
So a really interesting example was the Disney case. And what happened is Disney has these MagicBands that you can use to do all sorts of interesting things at the park. They're basically an identifier / entitlement device, if you think about it.
So it's like something you wear on your wrist that
you
gives
wear it
you
on your
access
wrist
to thing.
And it keeps track of your credits, and it helps you like hold your place in line, and there's a bunch of other things. When they built them with sensors that they did not have a use for yet. They did not have a software application in mind when they put in an accelerometer.
What's an accelerometer measure? How fast
it can tell. It can tell how fast you're moving.
Okay, if you're on a roller coaster versus
it can
walking.
tell if you're on a roller coaster, and they're like, we don't know how we're going to use this yet, but the hardware takes so long to build and develop that we're going to put as much as we can in, and then develop software that will utilize this as we see needs.
Okay.
And so the adoption for the MagicBand runs on a different pace than the software development for MagicBand. So when you combine those, you can say, hey, you've just gone on a bunch of roller coasters. Did you know that there's a short line for this next roller coaster? Right? Or you went on 2 roller coasters and stopped. Would you like a meal? Like, here's a little meal discount.
Yeah.
Right.
That's where the
So-
Dramamine is sold.
Right. And so building a device that you don't know all of the things you're going to use it for, it seems like a real leap of faith. But in a world with progressive delivery, you can say, software is not the hard part. I'm going to roll that out as it becomes relevant to what people need or want.
Mm-hmm. And they're collecting user feedback as part of that.
And they're collecting user feedback, and they're like, okay, here are the busy times for this. And because it's, an identity thing, they're like, okay, everybody with little kids gets here early and we need to have extra princesses out, but everybody with teenagers doesn't roll in until like 10 o'clock. So like we're going to have more capacity for the like scarier rides.
Right on.
And
very cool.
You couldn't really track that just by watching the ridership numbers, right? You have to know who the riders are to be able to correlate that.
That's awesome.
Sense.
Yeah.
Well, you know what we do have correlation around here for is we've had a great discussion, and hopefully people have enjoyed it. If so, we know you've got the progressive delivery book, but if people want to check out more stuff about you, maybe look at that book, see what you're up to, where would you point them on the World Wide Web?
I have a website at HeidiWaterhouse.com, and we have a website at progressivedelivery.com.
And are you guys on a like year-long book tour, going on conferences, talking about the stuff?
Yes, I think our next appearance is Monkey Gras.
Oh, yes.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Are you going to be doing any like readings? Did you do that with this kind of book?
Not usually. But we do give away stickers, so.
Well, there's that. Even better than a reading. You can read it yourself, but you can't make a sticker yourself. I mean, I guess you could.
And there's an audiobook. I am a big fan of audiobooks for technology books so that I can do something interesting while I'm learning.
I just kind of ambiently pick it up. Yeah.
I'm laughing so hard at the implication that what you're learning is not interesting.
I have difficulty reading technology books. I'm just like,
Yeah, I could see how it would be kind of like yard fertilizer. It's like valuable, but not interesting on its own. I don't know. I'll have to work on that. Well, speaking of, I know things that are valuable, not interested on its own. This episode of Software Defined Interviews, right, Whitney?
But
I think this is episode 120. So if you want to get links to things we mentioned and stuff, that site Heidi said, other relative things, you can go to softwaredefinedinterviews.com/120 and find it all there. And with that, thanks for being on. It was fun.
thank you so much, Heidi.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.